It was actually son of Golden Turkey Awards that kind of hinted at the backstory. It was still very enigmatic at that time, what the story about Art. They just kind of knew he was mysterious and he had disappeared, but nobody really knew what happened with him. Nancy and I had done a documentary called Haze, which was about college binge drinking, totally different thing. It was a very dark journey making that film, and I wanted to do something which I thought would be a heck of a lot more fun, you know, doing the story of making The Peeping Terror. But the more we learned, and we started poking around online, and there's a lot of information out there about Art Nelson and basically everything that, you know, most everything that we learned making the film. And then we found Lois Wiseman, the actual first wife of Art. She had written a book called Hollywood Con Man. It uses aliases, but that one told about basically what you see in the film here.
She was very endearing in the movie. It was just very comforting to have the interview of her all these years later, to know that she came through all that and she survived, you know.
Yeah.
That's the hero of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe do you have any thoughts about playing the part, or what you're?
Sure. Well, as Pete said, there's a book called Hollywood Con Man, and that was the first thing that I read when I got the part after a Skype audition, which somehow turned out pretty well. And the book, I highly suggest it to anyone. I think the residuals go to an abuse shelter in Owensboro, Kentucky. So if you purchase that book, it's phenomenal. It tells her real story, her side of the story. And the things she had to go through, I know the movie does a really great job at portraying it, but some of the things I had to read was so difficult. I was crying on an airplane to Colorado one time because it was so difficult to actually read what she actually had to deal with. So to prepare for the role, it was difficult. The first day I was there, I realized, oh, this is what this is going to be like. Okay, so let me get myself together. And then, so every day I had to go ahead and get ready for that every day, and I had to go home and watch Disney movies every night to make myself so that's how I coped. But it was great working with Josh. He comes off as a real asshole in the movie, and he's actually a really swell guy. He apologized to my mom because he had to do me in the movie. Can I pass it to Josh?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, that was very difficult. Very difficult. So Jodi was on set for 2 weeks, and we basically just abused her the whole time, verbally and physically. And you know, as an actor, you get into these zones, and you know, even though it's play acting, you walk away from a situation like that, and you kind of still somehow have the same feelings of shame and guilt that you might have around actually doing something like that. So after 2 weeks of it, I think I was like, Pete, are we done with this yet? I'm just tired of abusing this woman. My self-image has gone down the tubes. But she was a really great sport, and she really, you know, she dealt with it very well, and you know, kudos for that.
Thanks.
I'd actually be interested in hearing you talk about what it was like to play such a monster, because I've always heard that actors have to try to kind of sympathize with their characters somewhere, or find the humanity within their characters. And this guy, you know, it didn't seem to be any there. But you played him in such a really powerful, compelling way.
Thank you.
So what was that process like? If she's saying we'll take her word for it, you're actually a great person. What was that like playing such a horrible, irredeemable, awful person?
It was very challenging, and I think that when you have a character like that, you do have to find something redeeming. I mean, and not only because we didn't really want the audience to like him so much, but we had to show that there was something about this guy that people gravitated towards, and even though we didn't want to aggrandize him in any way and say, oh, well, look how cool he was, that's why he was able to do
believe
this.
Me, that didn't happen.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it would have been really easy to kind of do this larger-than-life, maybe bad guy, Scarface, anti-hero character.
Right.
But we wanted to show all these different angles of how, well, you could actually see his ineptitude, and there was even, you know, people would say, well, you know, we could kind of tell this guy something was off about this guy, yet we still went along with it. And so trying to find all those different aspects, you know, like, well, why did people listen to this guy, and what was it about him? It was very, very challenging to do it, because Well, number one, you have the lead character, and he's not supposed to be sympathetic at all.
Right.
So that's always a challenge in and of itself, because usually, even if it's an anti-hero, you identify with that guy. And then I've met a few questionable people in my life, and had some experiences with people who kind of act that way, and so I tried to bring some of that with it. And then we all have dark spaces inside us where you act in a way that you regret, and you say things you regret, and you have to find those dark spaces inside yourself to play a character like that, and admit to yourself that, oh yeah, there's something about me that's kind of like this guy. And even if it's a small part of you, everyone has faults. And so trying to bring that to the character as well. And as far as humanity, that question was asked a lot. So, well, what do we like about this guy? Is there anything we're supposed to like about this guy? And the only thing that we could really come up with is that he was just kind of audacious, and people seem to respond to that from time to time. And so, the unmitigated audacity of his whole thing is kind of really the one shred of something where you kind of go, oh, yeah, I see what you did there, jerk. So.
Oh, thank you. So, anything else you guys want to say? Should we turn over to questions?
I think
Anyone have any questions?
Well, speaking of dark places, I didn't quite understand the whole child porn thing. What was that?
What we had pretty much gleaned from the people that were working on the Creeping Terror, and some of the family members related to Art, they confirmed that he actually was simultaneous to making the Creeping Terror. He was shooting pornography, and there were always a lot of children coming and going. And one of the principals that actually, I don't want to mention names just for the sake of respect for the people that were involved. But one of the crew members' son recalls being abused on the set, and pretty much had corroborated the fact that that was indeed what was going on. So we tried to keep it vague for a lot of different reasons, but the implication was there that they were shooting the Creeping Terror only as a bit of a front for the real lucrative side of the kiddie porn. And one of the points that I was trying to make as the director of the film was these things exist out there. And when you look at something that's as bad as the Creeping Terror, and even though there's seemingly, a lot of people that knew A.J. Nelson briefly would say, well, he's a nice guy and so forth. But these things do happen. And when you take a look at the, kind of connect the dots of people with the equipment that they have, the resources to do it, and they have this type of psychopathic nature, usually where a lot of that material stems from. Okay. Yes, sir?
For the actress, what was the worst event that you read?
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, the hardest part for me to read was actually the parts where she felt love, because it was so rare, and her take on love was so strong that I think sometimes an average person can take that for granted, that for her it was so rare, that's what really would kill me with that book, was when she felt that. But there was like a scenario where, and it's kind of in this film a little bit, where he brings home a prostitute and she has no idea what's going on. And she gets beaten because she questions him. And for me, that was something that I couldn't really handle as, well, female reader, actress, to list a few. But there was many scenarios like that, and the fact that he would stalk other women and he would talk down to her about, like, for example, when he was talking to Lucille Ball, she had red hair and he had a thing for girls for red hair, and he would talk down to her just because her hair was not red. Something as small as that would set him off and okayed him to beat her. But as you see, there's a little bit too much to mention for me to list to you guys. But I do strongly recommend picking up the book if that part of the story interests you, because it's really compelling stuff. It really is.
His first, the film that showed his early promise, that you glossed over. Maybe that's a whole other movie.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's right. We wanted to leave it open for a sequel. You know, it's funny. I'm like one of the only people on the planet. Me and my wife Ashley, we actually got to see that film. I don't know. Has anybody here seen Street Fighter? Was that? Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Somebody else said yes?
It's just wasted.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I played the video game.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Yeah. Different movie. Street Fighter was actually directed by Joe Sargent, who...
oh, he's a big time.
Yeah, he had done
He's a great
MacArthur and the Colossus, the Forbin project, and some of the better
lot of TV.
Star Trek episodes.
Yeah.
But we saw it, and it was very fragmented, the print that Lois had. She actually only had it on a VHS tape. But it was one of those things that, boy, if we went down that route, we'd have another huge story. And he was much more aloof and distant during the making of that. He was looking at it to be a star vehicle to launch his career. And Joe Sargent really didn't want to be associated with it in a lot of ways. And again, a little bit out of respect for that too. But it was so funny because it had a dance hall scene. It had, when people were fighting, a fist goes right into the camera. Some of the earmarks of the Creeping Terror.
Many of the themes and motifs.
Were there any phallic yoni symbols in that movie?
There was such a great scene, though, where he just does this long diatribe. He's actually a very flat actor when you see that film. He's just very, but he does this big diatribe about how he is, I'm God if people don't mess with me and so forth. And that was in Lois's experience with him. It was in Street Fighter. It was things that he really honestly felt about himself. And when you understand the mind of a psychopath, at least
Narcissistic.
what you might learn about the condition.
And I never knew about the whole Charles Manson thing. This gave me an idea, actually, for a series I want to do, the Young Charles Manson Chronicles. But that's just crazy that he hooked up with Charles Manson.
Yep, that's all true.
Actually, Charles Manson's music career went better than his movie career.
He did actually get a record deal, I think.
Yeah, he did. He was looking for, on the night, never mind.
Yes. Yeah, so the question is, did the children reach out to us? To this day, we get random things. Hey, I'm one of the illegitimate kids of R.J. Nelson. Every oh gosh, it seems like every other month something comes in. But when we met Lois, when we did the interview with her, Linda was there, their daughter. She was very quiet about the whole thing. She didn't say too much. But from, I think, the 3 or 4 others, they were like, hey, I think it's awesome that you're doing this. That was kind of the consensus.
There was the one email I read where she was, she was just kind of, was it Linda? I don't know, when she just kind of sent about a 3 or 4 paragraph email going, yes, you're right, this guy was terrible, he was horrible, and this and that. And she just kind of corroborated everything we already knew.
So it doesn't seem like you're going to get sued for defamation of
Highly unlikely.
So far as the kind of crossover between narrative and documentary, I'm curious how that transition occurred. In terms of the dramatic stuff, how did you decide to fill in the gaps dramatically?
Yeah, great question. When we were very early in the process, it was to be a straightforward documentary. And it was actually Shannon's sister, Shannon O'Neill, her name is actually Shannon Ridley, who was in the Creeping Terror. Her sister was all for it, but Shannon wanted to erase all association with the film. And it's kind of fascinating. She's, no, I don't want to talk about that film, but her sister did, and had a big portfolio of snapshots they had taken during the making of the film. And we were drooling over that. It was like, oh my gosh, because there was close to zero, even on-set pictures from the Creeping Terror. We couldn't find anything. But the sister got spooked by Shannon, said, really, I don't want you to do this. So she kind of said, early on, no, we can't get a hold of those pictures, we can't give them to you. So we thought, oh boy, we got all of these great interviews and this great story that's been stitched together, but zero we can use in terms of B-roll. So we decided to just kind of recreate it. So it was early. We've been working on this for about 4 years. And it was my year one. We decided, well, let's play with the format. Take Errol Morris a step further and really recreate and create a narrative. Everything was completely conveyed to us by other people. Everything that you see in the film, the only thing that's complete conjecture was him going into a church drugged out and having visions of making a film. Although Lois had said he did quite often go to the church, he would go drunk and so forth. So I had this idea that, yeah, that's where he kind of conceived of this whole godlike, message going to him.
We got to wrap it up.
Oh,
One more quick and then we got to go.
I see Bird back there.
Did you acknowledge me? Thank you.
We'll make this.
Bird Holland, everyone. No offense to the Chinese.
I know many of you and mention all the names, but it would take too long. But I just want to thank Nancy. I'm just so thrilled that this is a good motion picture.
It's a great way to end this segment. You can run out quickly maybe and grab a cocktail because we are actually going to watch The Creeping Terror. I hope many of you stay.